started this painting at the end of autumn, and so often when I walk through the forest, then actually my eyes are, when you look straight forward, you basically are looking towards the trunks. And yeah, when you see the tree trunks and also actually the soil of the forest in autumn, there's a lot of like these earth brown and yellowish earth tones, and it has a kind of special vibe. And even though I did not want to replicate the colors per se, I did want to go for that vibe, like being confronted, being immersed with the tree trunks. So when I started this painting, I wanted to go for a certain panoramic effect, what you also have in the forest, that you're surrounded by the trees. But that was a little bit of a challenge. So my studio is actually is a shipping container. So it has the size of like, it's comparable to a trailer behind a truck, right? So it's like 2.5 meters wide, and the length is 5 meters. And so what I did is I just stretched a canvas of a little bit more than 3 meters on one side of the long side. So in that way, I could actually paint really big, large canvas, but I could not stand away really far from the canvas. And yeah, so that is a challenge. And I know this also. I know you need to be able to step away from the canvas and to see it from a distance. But I was stubborn, and I thought, let's try it anyway. Like I will probably find a way, and if I stand up close, and since it's panoramic, I can probably move around, and pieces will come together. Even though I knew better, but I thought, let's try anyway. But yeah, at a certain moment, like halfway the painting maybe, or at least quite far in the process, I realized that it was, I also noticed that my painting speed was slowing down. And this is basically a sign that something is not working, and yeah, that was the distance that I had from it. So so something had to happen, and I slept a few nights over it, and I basically then decided to cut it in two. And then I re-stretched it on stretcher bars, and so then I had basically instead of one very large painting, I had two still quite large paintings, of which the left one is a little bit smaller than the right one. They're equally high, but I made a choice based on composition, and then the left side became a little bit smaller than the right side. That's just you have to make choices sometimes. And then that was actually a good decision, because then I could put it in the short side of my studio, and I could actually take the 5 meters of distance, and also not quite important actually, I could also take it outside of the studio and watch it, for example, in daylight or different light, and to see how it looks then, and even from 50 meters difference, which is distance, which is of course in the studio also never possible, of course. So yeah, that was in the end, it was a good decision to do that. So in most of my work, the colors are really important, and how do I actually choose those? How do I choose those colors? Often this is a little bit improvised. I start sometimes with an idea, but then still I need to I notice I work best actually if I react to something. So I actually started, in this case also, I started with just putting random colors on the canvas, and then I sketched on top of that, and then random I mean like a bit abstract, like it's not was not completely random, but there was something already there. But I know already, like when I do this, that it might have nothing to do with the end result. It's just that I have something to react to. That works better for me than just pure white or pure red, or it just, there needs to be some kind of chaos, and the chaos is also something I like to maintain. But yeah, coming from that, it's it is a matter of improvisation. I am aware of complementary colors, you know, like that some colors they look more bright when you put a different color next to it. So like for example, blue and orange. I'm also aware, of course, of shades. You know that they are darker, of course, than not shades. And also one thing I try to consider is because I work in layers here, is that some parts were painted transparently and other parts are actually painted opaquely. And so often, but not always, I would paint transparent in the shade so that you have a little bit of depth in there. But also this is a little bit of matter of feeling how you do that. So it's not really a set plan. So I prefer painting forests above, I think, yeah, many of the other landscapes, because yeah, when you go into the forest, there is like branches everywhere, leaves are everywhere, the trees are not organized at all. It's just a big mess, you know, beautiful mess, but it is very messy. And yeah, when you're outside, maybe with a more organized landscape, like a garden or you know, the beach. Um, I don't know. I prefer the chaos because it's kind of unpredictable. Also, it's impossible to paint. Also, it takes like a different approach. You need to approach it with a bit of chaos and action, maybe. You know, like you need to, your brush strokes should not be like, you know, that's not okay. So you really want to have movement in there, because the trees themselves also, even though they are standing still, they are in a slow motion, and together with the wind um, and the light that is reflected through all these leaves on the ground and the little patches, um, it is a kind of like a, yeah, chaotic whole, and that just, I find that really attractive.